Good morning, Nation. John here. Welcome to Prepper Nation History. Few things before we get started. We're going to be talking about the Fuhrerbunker this morning and the Fuhrer himself. And history tells us the Fuhrer committed suicide in the Fuhrerbunker with the Red Army basically at their doorstep. And from there, you know, the rest, as they say, is history. I'm going to dispute that this morning in this video. Now, this is a theory. I'm going to present circumstantial evidence. I'm going to present my own reasoning, and then I'm going to let you folks make your own minds up. Okay? Before we go there, a couple of quick things. Number one, I ordered an MP40, guys. I just ordered it earlier today. Not a real one. I can't afford a real one, folks. This is an airsoft MP40, but I'm going to make sure that it's completely blacked out and finished the same way it would have been during World War II, and it's going to be back here on the wall somewhere, which I'm sure is going to drive the other Prepper Nation folks on the main channel nuts. So I'm going to get some emails on that one, but just to let you guys know, you're going to be seeing one of those eventually. Second, this is very informal over here. More informal than Prepper Nation, if you can believe it, son. This is not me talking to you and just speaking to you and you listening. This is us having a chat. You know what I mean? Over a coffee table or coffee shop table or whatever. So it's very informal over here. I really want to hear what you folks have to say in the chat. Because I know we all have our own theories about what happened. Also, I use the term son for those of you that are here strictly for the history. I realize that most people on here talking about history ain't dropping the word son and they ain't using slang. Okay, but where I'm at in the United States, son, the word son is a term of endearment. It's not meant to upset anybody. And my slang, look, when I'm pronouncing some of these last names in German, I have them written down, but I just speak with my own southern drawl. So just a heads up, okay? I feel like I need to have a blazer or something on for the history channel over here. I'm sitting here in a mossy oak pullover. I may have to work on that. I may have to get out to a thrift store or something here soon and drop $10 and get me some kind of cheesy looking blazer to make it official. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about the Fuhrerbunker and the Fuhrer. So I posted a video earlier, I think it was earlier this week here on the backup channel, Prepper Nation History. And we talked about how to properly study history. You have to look at the event from different angles. You have to put bias aside, and you really have to try and get into the heads of the key players that were involved, the key people surrounding the event. So, of course, when you're talking about the Fuhrer and the Fuhrerbunker, the number one person that you're going to have to get into the head of is Adolf Hitler. And I will forewarn you, if you've not done that, it is a very dark place. To try and understand what was going through Hitler's mind, it's different. I'll say that much. It's not hard to do because he wrote a book called Mein Kampf, or My Struggle. So the story really quickly behind the book, for those of you that don't know, it is available like on Amazon and stuff. I'm sure if you order it, you're going to get put on some sort of a list or something like that. But I've read it several times. And the whole thing with that was, he had joined the National Socialist Party. They were picking up steam. They tried to overthrow the government illegally. He was put into prison for a year-ish. And while he was incarcerated, and he had a lot of help with this also, he wrote this book. And he basically laid out his plans, why he was upset with the state that Germany was currently in at that time, and what he would do to change it. And then by the time he had gotten out of, prison, his words had connected with, I would argue, the average German who really felt the same way. And I know you guys don't want to hear it, a lot of your Trump fans, but I will say that's the one thing that these folks had in common. They were populists in the sense that they connected with everyday people the way that most politicians can't do, right? Trump was an elite, very rich, but he somehow connected with the average American, okay? And Adolf Hitler was able to do the same thing. He was able to connect with the average for different reasons, but he was able to connect with the average working class German. And so here it is. Here's his beliefs. This was what was in his head at the time. Of course, he didn't like certain races. I mean, this is pretty obvious, guys. We know about the things that happened during World War II. But he was also extremely anti-communist. He thought communism was a disease that was slowly destroying Germany. It was taking over Germany. And so in his mind, okay, the irony here is that Adolf Hitler was not born in Germany. He wasn't technically German in the sense that he was born there. He was born close by, but he wasn't born there. He just identified strongly with the German people. He saw the First Reich as the Roman Empire. And then he saw the Second Reich, which is, empire or kingdom, as the 1800s Germany. And then he saw the deterioration of Germany again in his mind. And he said, I'm the guy that's been chosen. I've been put here by God to, and he believed that. He believed that he'd been put here by the Maker to lead them back out and become a world power once again. And essentially that's where the Third Reich came from. He hated the look even of the German flag. Everything that you saw during the Third Reich, from the flag, the colors of the flag, the war eagle, everything had been hand selected by Adolf Hitler, and he had reasoning behind everything, as we'll discuss. So, long story short, he gets out of prison, and now he's kind of sort of famous, semi-famous. He's making money as an author, and he uses this platform and the fact that he's connected with so many people to, rather than overthrow the government, to work his way into the government. He used that platform to get into politics and do things a little more slowly but legally. And this is how they took the government. And again, the way he would connect with them, for example, Hitler believed, and I am inclined to agree on this, that World War I never ended. Okay, if you go back and you study World War I, what happened is everybody involved, they had exhausted something. For example, France, they were out of people to fight. They had no manpower left, right? Germany was on the brink of bankruptcy. Like, they had no money. The resources, for certain countries, the resources were zapped. Everybody was just tired of fighting. There was really no victor. And they all had a part to play in the war. They were all guilty to some degree of causing the war. Yet when the war was over, and again, I would argue it technically never ended, they slapped a bulk of the blame on Germany. And again, Germany was already at this point poor, and now they had to pay money. They had to pay money as a result. And they had a bunch of their land taken. And they were limited, very limited in the amount of military that they were able to build from that point forward. Like, there were so many punishments thrown on Germany that everybody just dished all the blame on them, And Hitler tapped into this. Number one, he didn't believe that they were solely to blame. And I think that most historians would agree with that to an extent. They were not the only ones to blame. They did catch a bulk of the blame, which sucked. And German, the average working German was not happy about this. Why am I paying for a war, number one, that I had nothing to do with, and number two, that our country really didn't, start solely. And yet here I am working, paying 50% of my paycheck, to another country, right? So he tapped into that, and he promised the German people, he said, look, I'm going to build us back up into a world power. I'm going to make sure that the average German person has what they need, land specifically. He's like, we're not paying for this crap. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. And so he rose to power off of this platform. He was extremely popular because of this, not just in Germany, but in the areas that had been German that were taken away after World War I and, made their own little countries. And so he's like, we're going to free our people. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. What Hitler understood is these other countries are sick to death of fighting. They have no stomach for war, right? They're going to talk a big game, but they don't really want to do anything because they're tired of war. So he did it differently. He built up a huge army, huge, son, and he dared them at every turn, basically. He would go in, like, for example, with Poland, went in, took it. And he was like, what are you going to do about it? You going to launch a war? He understood France still doesn't really have the manpower. Britain, they'll threaten, but they can't really do much. He knew the United States didn't want war. So what do we know about Hitler? We have to get into his mind here. So this was his thought process politically, okay? He was also very, and when I say very, I'm talking about extremely organized. He had to know every single detail about every single thing that was going on around him at the beginning of the Third Reich, especially. For example, when a bunker was built, okay, and there were plenty of these things being built off of forced labor, slave labor, things like this. He wanted to know every detail. He wanted to know every pound of steel, every single pound of concrete had to be accounted for. He wanted to know exactly how many people were being worked. Everything, okay? And he was very strategic about everything that he did. And this is important because it's going to play into my theory later on. When I say this man was strategic, he gets out of prison, okay? And he understands, okay, he's a powerful speaker. Adolf Hitler had studied Mussolini, and especially Mussolini's ability to deliver speeches. He was a huge fan of Mussolini because of this. They basically let Italy tag along with the Axis during World War II because, again, he was a fanboy of Mussolini. And so he tailored his speaking style after Mussolini. Hitler would, for weeks at a time, hours a day, stand in front of a mirror, change clothes. He wanted to appear. The Adolf Hitler that we see on film and in pictures, where he's got the jacket, he's got the certain hat on, he's got the certain stance going on, everything, he created that. Okay, this was not his normal personality. This was not Adolf Hitler prior to being arrested or being imprisoned. This is something that he manufactured. It was all created. He was, again, very strategic about everything. He had to know every detail that was going on, and then he tailored it to play to his advantage. Also, at the time that he supposedly committed suicide, it is estimated, and this came out during the Nuremberg trials, there it is with the slang, right? That he was worth approximately $3 billion with a B dollars in money today. Okay, so as it pertains to cash today here in the United States, $3 billion. So there are a lot of things about it that just doesn't make sense. Let's take a look at the people that were in the bunker with Adolf Hitler prior to supposedly him committing suicide. Okay, we've got Bormann, we've got Eva Braun, and Goebbels. Again with the slang, right? At this point in time, Himmler had fled. He basically was trying to save his own skin. He was turning state's evidence. He was going to testify against Hitler and everybody else and throw them all under the bus. And he was number 2 in the Third Reich at the fall of the Reich. And Hitler actually, even as Berlin was falling, he issued a warrant for Himmler's arrest. He knew the man wasn't going to be arrested. You know, the Reich's falling down and all around us. But it was more symbolic than anything because he had truly trusted Himmler. And, you know, in the 12th hour, Himmler bolted on him. So, again, the official cover story is the Red Army is approaching. He has seen what happened to Mussolini, for example. He did not want to be captured alive because he was afraid. Again, this is the story now, that the Red Army was going to mistreat him, that they were going to make him look like a fool in newspapers and things like that. He didn't want to be taken alive. So the official story, as it came out during the Nuremberg trials, from, again, hardcore Third Reich officers, high-ranking officers, is that, okay, so he and Eva Braun went in, they committed suicide, and then the, again, Bormann and Goebbels, they, with some SS soldiers, take them outside, they burn the bodies, and then they bury them in a shallow grave because they don't want the Soviet Union to find them. Okay, this is where things begin to unravel for me. All right, we're good up to that point. We're good up to that point. So here we go. Here we go down the rabbit hole. Let me get a drink of Coke. I'm going to need it for this one. All right, because it doesn't make sense. So number one, you do not want Adolf Hitler on the front page of every newspaper, in the world saying we got Hitler. You don't want his dead body or whatever on the front page of every newspaper. So you take them outside and you burn the bodies. Yet when the bodies were supposedly uncovered by the Red Army, Hitler's face was completely intact. This seems like it would be the first thing that the SS would burn. Like, this is his billboard to the world. This is what's famous. Not his foot size, not his hand size, this. And yet they burn everything else on the body and they leave this. Okay, number one makes no sense. Okay. Number two, the physicians that had visited and stayed with Hitler in the Fuhrerbunker up until shortly before the Red Army gets there, they were in agreement that Hitler was much older than his age would dictate. That he was old and that he was frail and that he walked, basically, he was a shell of his former self, is what one of the physicians actually said. Yet when you see the pictures, it would appear you can see the picture the day before. And again, I'll drop the link down below with the pictures of the Fuhrerbunker, etc. The day before, you can see Adolf Hitler, and then you see the body supposedly the next day, and it looks like he's gained 30 pounds. Okay, so this doesn't make sense. There's so much about this that doesn't make sense. So he calls for Eva Braun, Eva Braun at this time is staying, I believe, let me see here. The Burkhoff, I believe, is where she was at. If I'm wrong on that, I apologize. Please let me know in the comments, you history buffs. But I think she had been staying at the Burkhoff, which was a mountain retreat. Hitler had a couple of retreats. The Burkhoff was the mountain retreat, heavily fortified and defensible position. And then they had a couple of other very remote retreats. But she stayed at the Burkhoff a lot. And I believe she was there, and he had, he had corresponded with her or something. And again, the cover story is, the official story is that she realizes he's going to commit suicide. So she runs, she flies straight into Berlin to be with him. Now this makes, again, zero sense, because the Burkhoff, number one, is 100 times more defensible than the Fuhrerbunker. Right? It's heavily fortified. It's extremely hard to get to. You have to get in by train. And then once you get in by train, you have to traverse up this huge mountain where you basically give up the high ground the entire time. Like the losses would be substantial for anybody trying to take this place. You can't really take it by air because it's literally on top of a mountain. You would need pinpoint accuracy, and they just didn't have it during World War II from the air. For somebody that was such a strategic thinker his entire life, the cover story makes it sound like he has given up all hope, and he just sits on his hands basically at the end and says, I'm done, I'm done. But that's not consistent with the person that Hitler was. It's not like the Red Army reaches Berlin within 30 minutes. He knew for weeks that they were coming. He knew for weeks ahead of time. His generals had told him as much. At this point, we can't stop them. It's just a matter of time. One of the generals wanted to move him to relocate him to the Burkhoff. As a matter of fact, where Eva Braun's at. He's like, look, we can take you here. We can defend you for a year, maybe a year and a half from the Burkhoff. Easily. We have munitions there. We have tons of supplies there. This thing's much more comfortable than living like a rat underground. You'll be with Eva Braun. Hitler's like, nah, not going to do it, son. Well, he probably didn't say son, but you get what I'm saying. He's like, nah. They offer to move him to another bunker that's many miles away from Berlin. It's in an extremely remote area. It's 3 times as large as the Fuhrerbunker, and it has an advanced communication system that would allow him to basically run the Reich from underground. And again, he says, nah, I'm good. I'm good. He had went, according to the cover story, had went to all of his physicians and basically, said, I'm contemplating suicide. This also makes no sense. It's almost like they said he had a breakdown. Okay, they said the man had a breakdown, but I don't believe he did. I believe personally that there was already a plan in place, that he trusted, again, just a handful of people in his inner circle, and he trusted these men with his life. And I believe there was a plan in place to get him out of there. 200 yards from the emergency exit at the Fuhrerbunker is a underground train station at this time in Berlin. It's still there. This train can get him basically to an airfield where he can baboosh. He can go. Okay. So, man, it's insane, because let me give you a list of the people that later on were found to be living in South America, specifically Peru and Argentina. Okay. Eichmann, Mengele, Rolf, Stangl, Schwammenberger, Pripke, and Bahon. All of these were high-ranking officers in the SS, or they were over, the work camps. These were all people that were highly respected and highly trusted by Adolf Hitler. They all turn up again in South America. So what happens is, the official story tells us that old Adolf Hitler knows the end is coming, and all of a sudden he finds compassion. You guys believe that? All of a sudden he has a bleeding heart. He's like telling people that have been in the bunker the entire time with him, oh, the Russians are going to do horrible things. You guys go. Skedaddle. Get out of here, son. Go. Save yourselves. All of a sudden now, he switches over, and now he's Mother Teresa. He's trying to get everybody out. Because now, after many years of being a monster, now all of a sudden he cares about human life. So most of the people flee. You know what I mean? He actually has breakfast with his secretaries, and then he's like, you got to go. You got to go. Save yourself. What happens is, it leaves him there with a handful of his most trusted people and a couple of very trusted high-ranking SS soldiers. These are the only people there at the Fuhrerbunker at this point, okay? You have Goebbels and his family. They do commit suicide. But as for everyone else that's there, these high-ranking people that would have done anything for Adolf Hitler supposedly drag the bodies of Eva Braun and Hitler out. And again, set fire to him, but leave Hitler's face there for whatever reason. They put him in a shallow grave to where they're going to be found fairly easily. Again, this makes no sense. And then when the Soviet Union gets there, they come out, they say, oh no, he committed suicide. This is the only primary source that we have. The only people that tell us with absolute certainty that Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun committed suicide are people that were known for propaganda, people that did nothing but back this man tooth and nail throughout the entire war. They had every single reason to lie about this, guys. When you are evaluating a source, okay, investigation time, all right, when you put somebody on the stand, what does their credibility look like? Okay, these were people that worked at concentration camps for Hitler. These were people that worked at slave labor camps for Hitler. These are people that, this was his entourage. This very small handful of people, do you not think they would have lied for the man and allowed him to escape? I mean, are you kidding me? So the Red Army announces to the world, we got him. We got him. And then a short time later, they take a couple of official photos, again, where he's gained 30 pounds in 24 hours, it looks like. And then they hide the bodies. When the U.S. gets there, because the Red Army gets to the Fuhrerbunker first, there's like this mad dash to see who's going to get there first. The beginning of the Cold War, I would argue. So the Soviets are rushing from one side, the Americans are rushing from the other side. The Soviets get there first, they snap a couple photos, they say, we got him, we made history, and then they hide the bodies. They would not let the Americans see the bodies, only the photos. And I think what happened here, theory time, I think what happened here is the Soviet Union gets there, and they are so excited by the fact that they beat the Americans there, they announced prematurely that we got him. And again, the credibility, guys, shortly after they realized, oh my God, this ain't him. and now you have the Soviet Union that is under the direction of Stalin, and all they do is feed people propaganda. Okay, so from the American standpoint, okay, you're being told, the Americans get there to the Fuhrerbunker. They're like, okay, what's going on? Where's Hitler? You have a group of SS, again, high-ranking, very trusted officers that say, oh, he shot himself. You know, he and Eva Braun. She poisoned herself, and then he poisoned himself and shot himself. That's what happened, so help me God. And then you have the Russians saying, yep, that's what happened. You have two countries, again, Hitler's inner circle, the most probably untrustworthy people on the face of the earth at this time, and the Soviet Union that also had every reason to lie at this point. They didn't want to look bad to the entire world and say, oh, we screwed up, right? And who are known to do nothing but lie to their own people. Of course they're going to lie to the Americans. They have every reason, right? If they're not lying, why are you hiding the bodies? If the okay, let's backtrack here. If the Germans aren't lying, okay, why didn't they burn Hitler's face? The most recognizable face in the world. They wanted people to see this body and say, that's Adolf Hitler. They didn't know if it's going to be the Americans or the Soviets, but whoever got there first, they wanted these people to look and say, that's him. Of course, he had several sets of body doubles. He and Eva Braun, both guys. This is documented. You know, this can easily be, the argument, it's possible. I'll say it's possible that this is a body double laying here. The other body is charred beyond recognition. Okay, they burned the face on that one. Eva Braun, her face, she was good to go. If that's Eva Braun. Hitler, the dude is burned all the way up to the neck and then his face is there. Okay, that's a little suspicious, son. First of all. And then the Soviets get there and they're just so excited. They're like, we got the dude. Oh, this ain't him. So now they're out hiding the bodies somewhere. And then to make matters worse, and this still stands today, guys. In the 80s, all right, they finally relented when we had DNA testing. They're like, yep, go ahead and test it. The Russians finally said, hey, we'll DNA test it independently or whatever. Well, Russia, first of all, they do the DNA test and they're like, yeah, this is Hitler. So then it gets tested independently. But of course, the U.S. has its handprints on it. And the DNA test comes back and they say, no, this ain't him. With 100% certainty, this is not the body of Adolf Hitler. So to this day, the United States disputes the DNA test. And Russia disputes the fact that the United States disputes the DNA test. They can't even agree in 2021 if the body of the most notorious fascist dictator in history, if they even have the body or if he escaped, nobody knows. They don't know. It's a mess. But again, I want to get back to this. Let's go over this one more time. Hitler, the most organized man that I've ever read from a political standpoint. Okay, there were definitely more organized military leaders. That's another topic for another day. But politically and as far as image is concerned, okay, now we're expected to believe that he just, for whatever reason, he just didn't think that the Allies were going to get to Berlin. They're bombing the outside of Berlin, and Hitler's like, nah, we good, son. We good. This dude paid attention to every detail. Every detail. And we're just supposed to expect that he just sat around in the Fuhrerbunker eating ramen noodles or whatever they was eating back then, son. No. He didn't just sit in the Fuhrerbunker. We're supposed to expect, or we're supposed to believe, rather, that he chooses not to go to the Burkhoff with Eva Braun and run the Reich for another year and a half. And maybe somehow so the Nazis at this point in time, they're working on many wonder weapons. They're working on like ray gun / microwave technology. Believe it or not, they are working on an atomic bomb. Okay, so it's a race against the clock. Why on earth would he not go to the Burkhoff and give himself a year and a half longer to develop an atomic bomb to stay in the war? Why on earth would he not leave the Fuhrerbunker and go to much better living conditions at the Burkhoff with Eva Braun and know that she's safe as well? Why instead would he say, allow her to come into the Fuhrerbunker where he's already sitting on his hands waiting to die? This is stupid. All right. This would be stupid if the man was an imbecile. But again, he was highly strategic. Highly strategic. It makes zero sense. Okay. The only reason would be, again, if he had a plan to get out of the Fuhrerbunker at a certain point in time, and if Eva Braun was part of that plan and she was going with him, they get married prior to supposedly committing suicide. I believe they get married. The body doubles come in, to meet with Hitler. By this time, it's just a handful of trusted people in the bunker left. They boom. The body doubles, they poison one of them, they shoot the other. They burn them all except for the face of the Hitler impersonator. And then the people that are left behind drag these bodies out, like I said, and burn them, and that they are there to testify because they would have went to the ends of the earth for Adolf Hitler. He knew this. And they said, oh yeah, it's him. Scout's honor, son. It just makes no sense. That is the only reasonable explanation, especially when most of your trusted high-ranking officers were using rat lines to get to South America. Rat lines basically is, I don't want to say Underground Railroad, but a network of safe houses to get you to South America. Here's a man again that had $3 billion plus priceless artwork galore hidden already in South America. Okay, why would you hide it again in South America prior to all this breaking out? Because there was a plan in place. Because you're going to continue to run the Third Reich from South America. At least that's the plan. You have $3 billion. You have the Catholic Church. You guys can Google this. So the officers that are fleeing Berlin, his trusted officers, minus Himmler, who done ratted on him, they're fleeing Berlin. We know this for a fact. They were caught. Some of them were caught. Some of them they found them after they had passed away or whatever. There's concrete evidence that these folks were there. So they're using safe houses and rat lines to get all the way to South America. Part of this rat line, believe it or not, was the Catholic Church. They would show up at the Catholic Church. They would convert to Catholicism at this point in time. And the Catholic Church was then giving them a new identity. Then, and again, Google this, folks, or Bing it, whatever. Then the Catholic Church was in contact with the Red Cross. That Red Cross, folks. And the Red Cross was actually forging documents, like passports and things, for these individuals with fake identities on them. And then they were ratlining out of the country to South America. Again, Peru, but mainly Argentina. One of the individuals that was found to be there was, drumroll please, the head of Adolf Hitler's security team. So why would the head of Hitler's security team be in Argentina? Be found in Argentina, by the way, and Hitler not be there? You understand what I'm saying? There was a plan in place. I believe they have found plans. They've unearthed plans. This is, again, documented, that the plan of the Reich in South America. Now, it's debatable whether it was the Third Reich still, or if they considered themselves the Fourth Reich, whatever. they had planned on destroying the Panama Canal in order to hurt the United States of America. There were tons and tons and tons of Nazi sympathizers in South America. These people were heroes. The Nazi Party were heroes to many of the people that lived, especially in Argentina. There is sworn testimony of people. Of course, they're very old now, but they were like, there's one individual. She is, I want to say she's in her, I can't remember how old she is. She's up there, son. But she'd given sworn testimony that when she was like 7 or 8, she actually took Hitler's coat. There was a meeting at her home. And, later on you find out her father was a Nazi. She didn't know this at the time. She just said, hey, man, there's a bunch of, Germans coming over my house. I don't know. Here, let me take your coat, sir. She didn't realize at the time. And then later on she finds out, that's Adolf Hitler. The people that are giving this testimony in Argentina, the people that have said, there's even a picture floating around from South America from the 1980s. I'll try and find it and link it below. This man is a spitting image of an aged Adolf Hitler. And what had happened with this picture is the person had noticed, it was very strange, they had noticed like a German entourage with this individual. They'd seen him here several times in this area. And finally one day they get, they snap the picture. You know what I'm saying? But it's crazy, guys. It really is. When you dig into this rabbit hole, okay? Now there's also a theory that they went to Norway. And there's some circumstantial evidence to support that. I've also heard that they were taking U-boats from Norway and basically coming around the backside or the flank of the Allied forces that were crashing in on Berlin. They kind of went around to get to South America. I've heard that theory as well. But this thing goes all over the place. The more you dig on this subject, the more you find, basically. But what I can tell you with absolute certainty is this man was too structured and too organized, and really truly believe he was selected to lead the Reich. All of these things indicate to me that he's not just going to give up. If there's any glimmer of hope, any way possible, this man was in a bunker in Berlin. The irony here is he was hardly ever in Berlin during like the peak of the Third Reich. He was hardly ever there. He spent more time at the Berghof than he did in Berlin, and other places as well. So the irony here is he's not, in my opinion, going to just lay down and die in a tomb under a city that he really was never in. This place meant nothing to him. The country, Germany, did. But the Fuhrerbunker, he wasn't fond of the place, guys. There's no reason that he would have stayed there. Think about this put the human element into it for a minute, okay? Think about this as a human. If you think your final hour is approaching and you have an opportunity to be with a woman or the man that you love, are you going to bring them into the Fuhrerbunker where you know this person is going to be in bad shape very soon? Or presented with the opportunity, are you going to go to that person and make sure that they're safe? Do you understand? It makes no sense from where I'm sitting on this. So anyway, that is my particular theory. I think that he lived a majority of his life after World War II in Argentina, maybe a few other countries thereabouts. There's all kinds of information that's been unearthed. They've found Nazi safe houses. These things basically look like a castle. They found areas within these safe houses that look like kill boxes, little windows that slide open, just like identical to what you would have seen in German World War II German bunkers. There were guard houses in front of a lot of these places. The fencing outside of these guard houses and these, I will call them estates, because many of them were off to themselves, okay, very secluded. They had fencing around them, and something the Germans did back in the day during the Third Reich is they would have the fence that went up and then it went out, right, with the razor wire. This was very signature of Nazi Germany when they built military installations. They found a lot of these places in South America. They found communication towers. They found underground bunkers left and right with communications. They have established that basically the Third Reich could have been ran from underground, from bunker to bunker, and safe house to safe house again. So I will drop a couple of links below, but that's my thoughts on the Fuhrerbunker and the Fuhrer himself. I do not see any scenario where this man does what he does. He was too convicted, you know. He was just too convicted. He believed with all his heart that he was the man chosen to lead the Reich, and he was not just going to lay down and die. Not when there, again, was any sort of lifeline for him to continue the Reich. I mean, we're talking about a man who, during the fall of Berlin, was going around, you know, pinching the cheeks of, I mean, these were kids, right? These were kids. They were 12 years old, maybe. And they got rifles in their hand, and they're wearing the, you know, the junior SS outfits and everything. And he's basically saluting them and wishing them well before he sends them out to fight. Okay. That's a last ditch effort by somebody. If you're going to do that, you believe there's still a chance you're going to win the war. You know, especially when the official cover story is, oh man, this guy all of a sudden got a kind streak in his heart, and he just told the bunker to vacate because all of a sudden he cared about German life. You know, then you're not going to send kids out to do the fighting. You're going to send kids out to do the fighting to slow the Allies down, to throw a speed bump down, so they have to slow down long enough for you to make your escape out of Berlin. That is my official position on this. But again, I would love to hear yours. You guys are welcome to email me. If you want the email, just message down below. And I would love to hear your theories. You can comment on that as well. Anyway, hopefully you folks enjoyed this little, I don't want to call it a lecture, but it's more of a trip down a rabbit hole. And I encourage you guys to read up on World War II. Max Hastings is my favorite author by far when it comes to World War II. He's just incredible to read. I'm about primary sources as much as possible when you're reading on history. So if you're going to read up on history, the one thing I would encourage you to do is to read the older stuff. Get your hands on as much stuff as you can from the 40s and early 50s as you possibly can, because it's weird, man. History seems to change and alter a little bit from generation to generation, right? It's kind of like, do you remember in school, you tell the story to the person beside you, and by the time it goes all the way around the room, it's a totally different story. So instead of getting it from this person over here after it's been passed down 100 times, you want to go ahead and spin around, and you want to get the story from as close to the original source as possible. So try and do that. Hunt them down, son, on Amazon, eBay, things of this nature. All right, take care, folks. And again, I want to hear those theories. All right, God bless.